couple of months ago, I received my ADHD diagnosis at the age of 41. In this episode, I'm going to go deep and be really honest and open about what led me to getting that diagnosis, the process of getting diagnosed, my symptoms, what I've learned since the diagnosis, and how I'm now building a life to work with my brain, not against it. So, what led me to think I might have ADHD in my 40s? I'm going to heavily caveat this list with I think I might also potentially be autistic. I don't know. I don't have a diagnosis planned for that just yet. But I want to give you all my full list of things that at least made me think I might be neurodivergent. And that was my starting list for seeking a diagnosis and sort of seeing where I end up, sort of trying to find some answers about myself and how my brain works. So it started towards the end of last year, and I started looking at, I've always had this burnout. I've talked about it very openly on this podcast. It's what I now support many founders and leaders across games, creative tech, startups. Burnout is so, so common. And while I do believe that burnout is caused by many issues and things that can happen in our world, the world is relentless. It's moving very fast. Many of us have struggled to find our purpose. I started to realize that for me, burnout was always on the horizon, even with a lot of the coping mechanisms that I've put in place. And I started researching more like different types of burnout and where it can come from. And I'd never heard of neurodivergent burnout before. And the more I looked into it, I realized autistic burnout, ADHD burnout were all things. And I'm very late to this and understanding it. But I started going deep on researching this. And the more I researched it, the more I listened to podcasts, the more I read books, I had a lot of those, oh shit, that's me, like, oh shit moments. And a lot of that happened towards the end of last year. So I started making this list of all of the symptoms, all of the things that were impacting me to see if I could make sense of any of it alongside listening to all these other podcasts. And alongside looking at burnout, one of the things that also came on my radar was perimenopause. Now, I'm very, very early in that journey. I've just turned 41, and I can definitely tell there's little subtle changes happening in my body and my hormones, but I'm super, super, super early on that journey. I'm not going to talk deep on perimenopause alongside neurodivergence today. I'm happy to talk about it in the future. So if it's something you would like to hear more about, I am more than happy to talk about it. I'd love to be as open as possible if it will help people. What I do want to do is signpost people to another podcast, another episode that will help you because I found it very helpful for myself. So if you think you might be going through perimenopause and you're noticing a change in your ability to cope with things, which is very, very common for people with ADHD, many people going through perimenopause, it's when they clock that, oh, something's different in my brain. I might be neurodivergent. Please seek out the Late Bloomers podcast. It's with this couple, Rox Pink and Rich Pink. They are incredible. She's got ADHD. He's autistic. And she, like me, is in her early 40s. And honestly, she's bloody fantastic. I'd love to be her mate. I think she's super cool. But she's done this amazing podcast episode recently where she talks about her journey with perimenopause and ADHD. So I'm not going to go deep on that today. I just want to signpost people there because she's got a whole episode on it and it's bloody brilliant. So let's talk about my list of symptoms, the full list of things that made me think my brain is not neurotypical. And again, a heavy caveat. A lot of these are ADHD. I know that for certain now. And a lot of them, I think, might be more on the autism side. And I'm potentially going to seek an ADHD diagnosis as my next step. Just to say as well, if anybody is ADHD and they spot similarities with themselves and me, and you can help give me a bit of clarity on that, please do let me know in the comments because it's so difficult figuring out your own brain. And I would appreciate any help on that, just as I'm trying to help others by putting this episode out. So number one, the obvious one, I've talked about it loads in this podcast already, burnout. And a lot of that for me stems from repetition and boredom. Anything repetitive gives me zero dopamine. I get zero joy out of it. And quite often that boredom will tip into frustration. I can have like almost like a tantrum. My body goes into full protest. Now, that's a bit of a problem when you're a freelancer, you run your own business. Now, I love the game industry. I love startups. I love creative tech. I absolutely love it. And I've worked my way all the way to the top doing like CTO, founder, CPO. And yet now I struggle to do the things that I'm the expert in, which is what people often would hire me for, because my brain just finds them boring. I can't find any dopamine in it. I need a new challenge. I need things to be novel. I need them to be fun. I need them to be exciting. And I fundamentally believe that's why I have struggled to maintain employment beyond, I think, 4 years is the longest I've ever done, because I kind of get bored. And unless there's big pivots or interesting things going on internally where I get to try a new technology, solve a new problem, do a new challenge, I just get bored. And that leads to frustration. It leads to resentment. And my whole body just crashes. I'll be slumped at my desk. I'll be hunched over. You can see it in my posture. And so that for me is a huge area that I hadn't even realized might be a neurodivergent thing. I just thought I got bored easily. My second one is task initiation. And I started making this list on my phone and I thought, do you know what? I'm going to have burnout there. Know that one. Get a bit bored, get a bit frustrated. And I thought my list was just going to be one or two things, but this list ended up being huge. So please stick with me, but I hope it's at least helpful. So task initiation was the second one that I hadn't even really clocked to begin with. I'm fine once I get started in something, once I am in my zone, but getting in my zone is really, really hard, especially if it's a task that, again, I think is boring. So business admin, accounting, God, I hate doing it. I absolutely hate doing it. It feels like a mental mountain to start something, even if that thing only takes 5 minutes, but I will procrastinate. I will do anything else than do the thing that my brain perceives as boring. I need stuff to be more exciting and more novel for me to be able to start it. And so one of the things that I have realized is that I had a lot of coping mechanisms in place for helping me do things that are boring or that I'm going to struggle to start. So for example, listening to music hypes me up, it amps me up. And so if I put on music, I'll be go, go, go. And I can put on music and I will do my chores, I'll do my cleaning, I'll do my admin. But without that, if I'm just trying to sit and like raw dog accounting, I can't. I'll do literally anything else. So yeah, that barrier to entry, that difficulty starting things is really difficult. Number 3 that came up so often was novelty seeking. It's very, very closely related to the boredom side of things, but I seek novelty in life and I need it. I get so bored if I'm doing the same things over and over. And it will lead me to do unexpected things. I'll talk about my diagnosis later, but in the interview process, the lady actually laughed because I was like, yeah, in my 20s, I just got bored of living in London. So I gave all my stuff to charity and went backpacking and I worked as a digital nomad and it was the best time of my life because every day was different. And I woke up in a hostel and I didn't know where I was staying in like 2 days' time. I never knew what I was going to eat. It was all so novel. You couldn't plan it. And to me, I'm like, they were the best days like yet of my life in just that little sense of like, I was me. And I never quite understood why. And now I do. I have this constant desire to not just see new things, experience new things, but to change everything. You know, I live in a lovely apartment. I live in Edinburgh. I love Edinburgh. And still I go, could maybe just move to a different city. Maybe I should move house. Maybe that's the problem, right? And there'll be issues in my life where things won't be aligned and I know I need to change something. But the default thing I go to change is where I live, my career, what I'm doing. It's all the big stuff, right? I'm like, got to do a big change. So yeah, novelty, just seeking that and a bit of impulsivity is a huge part of my life. Very cliche. Number 4, the hobby pile of shame. Oh God, it's everywhere. I get so easily distracted by shiny things and I will struggle to listen and engage with boring things. And that shiny is like the novelty, right? And I love to learn. I really love to learn. I love to try new things. but it leads to me spending stupid amounts of money on things that I'm not going to stick with. Last year, wanted to try playing the keyboard, hadn't played it or a piano since I was a kid. So that'd be great. I'm just going to buy a really nice one. I'm going to buy loads of sheet music. I'm just going to have a go. I think I played it 3 times. And then I was like, this is harder than I realized. That just increases the barrier to entry. And now that's a hobby that's died. I had to put the keyboard on Facebook. I got into painting minis last year. And I still enjoy that, but I enjoyed it more when it was new, when it was fresh, when I was learning. And I got to a level of like, right, I feel reasonably competent at this now. And then it got boring. It just didn't have the same drive. It didn't have that same spark for me. I've bought supplies to frame artworks. I bought all the supplies and I really do want to do it. But I think part of the novelty of that was I bought vintage frames from antique shops. And I got to go around to all these different antique shops and buy all these empty frames. And I was like, yeah, that's great. I'm going to make my own frames. I would like to do it at some point. But I think the initial novelty of the treasure hunt of finding old frames to repurpose that satisfied that. There's just a pile of things on my lounge floor now. I will get to it eventually. I really will. I must do it. But it's just, I have all these little exciting ideas that I want to do and I start them. And then as soon as I become competent, again, I get bored. There's a lot of overlaps between these categories. And it's quite interesting when you start noting things down, the relationships between things and the repeated patterns. Number 5, I had no idea I even really struggled with this till I started noting down examples of it, is working memory. I always thought my memory was good. Turns out I've just had really, really strong coping mechanisms my whole life. I appear incredibly organized. You need to be organized if you're running a business, if you're founding a gaming startup, right? You need to be super organized. But it's just a coping mechanism. At a very young age, I learned to live by my calendar. Everything goes in my calendar, my work calendar, my personal calendar. If it's not in there, it gets forgotten. So I know it needs to go in there. I have loads of documents. I have notebooks. I have notes on my phone. I write everything down. And people seem to think I'm really proactive with documentation. They think I love it. I don't. Documentation is frustrating because it often is out of date the moment it's written. But if I don't write things down, I'm going to forget it within minutes. I am absolutely terrible at remembering names. I will often remember faces or people, especially if there's something interesting about them, like quirky hair, goth vibes, a cool outfit. I will remember that person, but will I remember their name? No, at least not at first. I need to find them on social media, on LinkedIn. I need to see them multiple times, or I need to find a way to link their name to something else so I can remember it. So for example, like somebody in my friend group has met someone called Aaliyah, and I was like, oh, how am I going to remember this? And I was like, Queen of the Damned, love vampire films. And Aaliyah was in that film. And it's such a weird, like tangential little link, but I instantly remember her name. If I don't do that, I will absolutely forget people's names. And it comes across really rude. And I worry often that I've seemed so like I don't give a shit about people. And the thing is, I care so deeply about people and the connections and people I meet. But I'll meet people and I'll ask their name and I try so hard to remember and it's gone. It's gone. I often make notes on my phone of people's names. I have one for my gym, for my bouldering, and I'll write a description of the person and put their name. And that helps it stick. But I just thought it was kind of common that people forget their names. I will lose my keys. I will lose my purse. I panic if I can't find them. They have to have specific spots. I've always done that though. I always have specific places for things like my keys and that. And I never knew that was a coping mechanism because if I don't put it there, I will not know where it is and I will panic. I need a grocery list for groceries and it's so mundane, but if I don't write things down, I will buy the wrong things and I will even still forget that I've got a list and buy the wrong things. I will get excited and impulse buy carbs and things that give me dopamine, high sugar, like treats. I will buy those because they make me happy. The dopamine, it works, right? And if I don't have a list, I will just not stick to it. And I as well will forget what's in my cupboards or in the fridge or in the freezer. And so I'll have to go, I've got no food, I've got nothing to eat. And it's because it's out of sight, out of mind. If I don't go through every drawer, I really struggle. So now I have to put the things that I know I probably will always have, like ketchup, go in the veg drawers in my fridge, but all the other little bits, all the perishables have to go on the shelf. Even the fruit and veggies, they don't go in the veg drawer, because if they're in there, that's where they go to die. It's just, for me, it feels ridiculous because I never even knew any of this about myself. I will make cups of tea, put the tea bag in, like fill it with water, go off and forget. I will forget. I'll come back an hour later to a very, very chewy, a very strong cup of tea with the tea bag still in. I'll still drink it because, I like a builder's cup of tea. But it's just this constant forgetting of things. Yesterday I cooked pasta and then I started doing something else, completely forgot about the pasta, and it was mush. And it's literally every area of my life. My working memory is appalling. If I don't keep something locked in, it's gone. Number 6 is a big topic that I do believe falls more on the autism side of things, but I'm going to mention it anyway because as I was writing my list of neurodivergent traits that I was spotting in myself, this one came up since childhood. And I never really understood it. And I think this is one of the ones that's making me really want to seek an autism diagnosis at some point. I can't afford it right now. And the waiting list for the NHS, unfortunately, is very, very long. But yeah, sensory sensitivities is a huge issue for me. If something is moving in my peripheral vision, I cannot not see it. So, for example, if I'm at the cinema and somebody is twitching, all my attention goes there. I cannot focus on the thing in front of me that I want to be focused on. It just locks my focus. I can't look away. I've just got back from a trip to Denmark. I went to the Copenhagen Festival with a bunch of my friends. Like, shout out to you guys. It's absolutely bloody brilliant. But on the flight there, I was sat next to this guy and I was trying to read a book, which for me, I'll get onto this in a bit, but reading's really difficult. I sat there trying to read my book and the guy next to me, he's on his phone playing a game. And it didn't have the sound on, thankfully, but it had the screen and I could see his hand moving like this in my peripheral vision. I could not focus on the book in front of me. And it was really awkward because what I had to do is I was sat in the window seat. I had to lean into the window and hold my book up like this to block the view of his hand because it was in my peripheral vision. I need them like blinkers, like you see on horses when they go, I need that because if I have something moving, I can't focus. I really struggle in, as much as I like a co-working space and body doubling, if there's too much going on around me, I really, really struggle. So movement, peripheral vision is a big sensory issue. I also have an issue with loud sounds that I can't control. Now, it's funny because I just mentioned I've been at a festival. I love music and loud noises that I choose. If I choose to be there, great. But if it's out with my control, for example, if I'm trying to go to sleep and I can hear the loud thud of a bass, or I can feel that bass, it makes me so physically uncomfortable in my own skin. It's like something's invading my mental bubble. And so it's one of the reasons why I struggle to live like in city centres, because often there are big events nearby. And if there's loud music and I can hear that bass, if I can feel that bass and I can't switch it off, I get so anxious it can bring on a panic. And quite often now, if I know there's going to be events nearby, I'll either have to like make sure I'm pre-planning, like put my earplugs in, do all of this, like to try and help me sleep. But if I know it's going to be really bad, I genuinely consider booking weekends away to avoid that because I know it's going to have such an impact on me. Another sensitivity that I have is labels or seams in clothing. For most of my clothes, I cut out the labels. Apparently that's what spies do. Kind of makes me feel cool, right? Like you wouldn't know where I bought my clothes from because all the labels are cut out. Because for some reason, whatever the material is, they make the little labels out, especially the ones that go at the back of your neck. They're so scratchy. They're so scratchy and they will steal my focus. So I cut them out. Seams in clothing, I like soft clothes. I like things that feel comfortable. And if there's a scratchy seam, it's so uncomfortable. And it's one of those things, again, that will just steal my focus. And that can be really, really exhausting. Another one, smell. I really struggle with smell. It can be great. Like I say, I just went to Denmark. Like all I could smell was pastries and good coffee and baked goods. Heaven, absolute heaven. The counter to that is if you are going to a gym or a locker room or a changing room, or like you live with someone that's cooking food that you really dislike, it is so intense to me that it's almost overwhelming. And I find that when I travel, it can be really difficult. If you stay in like almost like an Airbnb or an apartment rather than a hotel, if it's got a kitchen and someone's cooked something smelly, or sometimes I've been in places where they've had a fridge that it had this sort of acrid smell. And the people I'm with often cannot smell it. And I've felt like I'm the one that's overreacting. I feel so melodramatic, but I'm like, I feel nauseous. I cannot be in that space. Like often I've had to leave places because the smell is so intense, and yet other people often can't smell it. Number 7, this one's definitely an ADHD one because I've heard other people talking about it. Body awareness issues. I often do not notice that I need to eat, that I need to drink, that I need the bathroom. I'm also often not aware of my physical space and surroundings. I bash into things constantly. In my own apartment, I will walk into door frames or I know it's there, but my brain is so elsewhere that, yeah, if you ever see me with bruises, it's because I've haphazardly bumped into something that I really shouldn't have because it was right in front of me. So yeah, I don't realize that I'm hungry. I noticed that I ate less at the festival because I was so excited and the novelty was there. I just forget to eat sometimes. I have to be very, very mindful of making sure I eat enough. I often won't drink enough. And I don't notice I'm dehydrated. But I think some of that also comes from the not noticing that I often need the bathroom. And that is something that's really difficult to talk about. And it's embarrassing to talk about. But I really want to mention it and go a little bit deeper on this topic because other people talked about it and I didn't know it was an ADHD thing. And I've struggled with it my whole life. As a kid, I would have accidents. It's really embarrassing. It's really embarrassing. It would sometimes happen in my 20s, especially if I drank too much on a night out. And I would be so excited doing stuff and I'd be out and about doing things or I'd be hanging out with friends and then I'd need to get a bus home or I'd like be stuck somewhere and I'd be like, oh, I need the toilet. But the second I often realize I need the toilet is like, it's now. It's now. And it's not I should probably go to the toilet at some point in the near future. It's no, we need to go now. And it can be quite stressful. And it's one of them things that's really embarrassing to talk about. And I've got better at dealing with it in my adult years, but it becomes a case of I won't drink much in meetings for work because I'm going to be stuck in that meeting. And then if I get pulled into something else, I'm not going to get the body cue. And then when I eventually stand up from my desk, it will be a desperation situation. And one of the things I've learned is that I can't work in companies or organizations where it's back to back to back meetings. I think they're really bad for anybody with neurodivergence. It is not inclusive to have meetings that are back to back. It's awful. If you need to be doing that in your business, I fundamentally think something is wrong with the way that business is being run. Nothing needs back-to-back meetings. There should at least be a 15-minute break between any big meeting so that people can go to the toilet, get a drink, stretch, move. As humans, we're not built to be sat at desks like you're at school, like sit up straight, can't do anything. We're not built for that. And so I really struggle with meetings, sitting at a desk, or even just anything where I get distracted. Cinema, binge watching TV. I can often sit and I'll binge watch 4 or 5 episodes. I get so into it. And then I finally stand up. I'm like, oh my God, I'm desperate for the bathroom, yet still somehow dehydrated. And I forgot to have dinner. It'll happen when I play video games. I can play a video game for a whole day, forget to eat because I get so engrossed in it. Big topic, huge topic. It's really embarrassing. It's hard to talk about, but it's one that I've really wanted to mention because I've struggled with it my whole life. Number 8, emotions. I am very, very, very emotional. Very emotional. I'm prone to overwhelm, panic, crying, breakdowns when things get intense. Now that has got better as I've had a lot of therapy because I had a lot of bottled up trauma. But even over the last few years, if I ever drank too much, now I don't drink, because it helps me in so many ways to not drink. But it certainly helps with the emotional side of things. If I find that I'm getting emotional, it can just easily spiral into more. I'm very, very heightened. I learned recently about rejection sensitivity dysphoria. I'll talk more about that in a bit. But it's a very, very common trait among people with ADHD. Apparently, it's nearly 100% of people with ADHD have rejection sensitivity dysphoria, and it also impacts people who don't have ADHD. But it's this real strong emotional response to being disliked, to criticism. And so like a negative comment on the podcast will cut me deep and it'll make me go, oh God, I don't want to look at it. I can't deal with it. It makes relationships really, really difficult. And so let's talk about that. Number 9, social relationships. I have struggled with that so much, not only from the RSD side of things, because it cuts deep if there's an argument, but what that's also led to is me doing too much people pleasing and losing myself. It's like the boiling frog in water analogy. I've really, really struggled to be 100% me through my whole life because of that fear of rejection, the fear of people disliking me. And so I've people pleased. I've lost myself. I've acted not goth. I've acted so normal at so many points through my life. And that's just not me. I've pretended to like bands that I don't like. I pretended to hate bands that other people say you should hate. Even though I'm like, no, I actually really like that music. You know, it's one of those things that impacts people with ADHD so much, and we are so prone to losing ourselves and to people pleasing. I absolutely hate being told what to do because often I will end up doing it even though I really resent it. Even if I think that thing is fundamentally wrong, I've still done it in the past to avoid disappointing others, to seem acceptable to others, and often to my own detriment. And I think much of this has contributed to my burnout. Because of all of this, I often find social situations incredibly exhausting because I don't feel like I can be 100% myself unless I feel like I can drop my mask. And I'm going to talk about masking a lot more in a bit. But when I can unmask, I don't find social situations exhausting. I actually find that they can give me energy. Related to the social side of things, I can often feel trapped in conversations. And when I say trapped, I mean just like I can't move, like I am a little prisoner inside my own body. Like, yeah, a prisoner of my own making in conversations, in work, in being based at a desk, in employment, in contracts, whatever it is. Quite often because of the boredom or because of social things or because of masking, I just feel this overwhelming sense of being trapped, to feeling cornered. And it's like I get itchy in my own skin, in my own body. I have to move. In conversations that I want to escape from, in things that I don't want to be in, if I find myself stuck around a table where everybody else is talking and I'm overwhelmed, all I want to do is leave that situation. And I find it really tricky because I can do a social event where I'm at a gig or I'm dancing or there's music. I can do that for hours. But sitting around a table at a group conversation with people who are louder than me, who dominate, I just can't. I just can't. I find it absolutely exhausting. My number 11 is hyperfocus. Again, I'm not sure if this one is ADHD, autism, or ADHD. I do not know where it fits, but I wrote it down because I definitely have it. I will hyperfocus on the thing that is shiny and exciting. A new project, a relationship, whether it's a new friendship or a romantic relationship. If I find a connection with somebody over a shared thing, I get so excited about it. It's like a hyperactive puppy. And I'm like, and I just, it's all I want to talk about. I just want to talk to that person. I just want to hang out with them. And it can be overwhelming, I know, for other people. I know it can be. And I've quite often tried to rein it in, but it's really tricky. These days, I'm finding the people who I resonate with more, especially post-diagnosis. And it's really lovely because when you find people that also get excited about those things, it's like you can just let go, you can unmask, you can be 100% you. I will also hyper focus on work if it's something I'm really passionate about and that I love. And again, that leads to burnout. So many of these things lead to burnout. Related to burnout again, number 12 is I struggle to rest and stop. It's a very common thing that ADHD people, often their brains do not stop. I struggle to pause my brain. I struggle to get my brain just to shut up. It's constantly whirring. It's rarely quiet. And I'm always wanting to be doing something, to be moving. I really struggle to sit still. Like I'm sitting now for this podcast, but I'm purposely letting myself do it in an unmasked way where I'm looking around, where I'm letting my arms flail. So if you're watching a video version of this, you're going to see me fidgeting, and I'm doing that on purpose because I want you to see me unmasked. If you see me try and do a meeting where I have to sit still and look straight ahead and look at the camera and do all of this, I feel like a robot. I can't do it. I need to be looking around. I can't hold that eye contact. I need to be like just looking around. I need to be moving. And my brain, it never stops either. Number 13 is a strange one. So it's anticipation and waiting is what I called it. And a few things got bundled under this. But if something might happen at an unconfirmed time, if someone says, yeah, I'll call you tomorrow, I just feel like I can't do anything. If I've got a delivery that's between 7 a.m. and 1 p.m., I mean, I'm sure most people hate that, but I end up in holding patterns is the best way I can describe it. It's like, well, I can't start anything because the barrier to entry to me starting stuff is usually really, really high. And then once I get into it, I'm going to want to be in that till I get the thing done. I'm going to want to hyper focus on it and really get in my zone, right? And if there's a chance that someone's going to phone me, knock on the door, interrupt it, I'm like, no point starting. I just can't. And so I end up in these holding patterns, and it's a real problem. It's a real problem. So these days I try and make sure everything is scheduled. Quite often people will say to me, oh yeah, let's hang out on this day. And I'm like, okay, but I need to know where and when. I need to know when. This is where I think this one might be a little bit more autism. I need to know where and when. And if that plan changes last minute, it's like, well, now my whole day's ruined because I've planned around this thing and I've not done anything because I know this thing's happening. It's such a weird way of living. And you can plan around it. Again, it's like asking friends, trying to schedule things in. But I do find, again, maybe this is ADHD, because I love the novelty and excitement and doing things impulsively, I feel like it's okay if I do it. But sometimes if other people do it, it knocks me for six. So it's a very weird, it's like two sides of like different traits that are often fighting each other. Number 14, I've made its own thing, even though I've already mentioned it, is conversation overload. I've mentioned it for social events, like sitting around a table at a pub with loud people that dominate conversations. I've really struggled with that in the past. Alcohol used to be my crutch for that. Now I don't drink, so I've lost the crutch and now I just cannot handle it. But those people that dominate, whether it is a very loud over the top CEO, because, often that is the way, whether it's a founder who's so excited about their project, but it might be something I'm not interested in, whether it is just conversation at a pub about a topic, again, I struggle because I just get overwhelmed with the chatter and then I just want to leave. Unfortunately, it also happens in meetings. So as much as I can be very confident and outgoing hosting a podcast, I can chatter for days. Again, like ADHD, I can waffle on for hours. I have to keep notes on this. I don't script it per se, but I do have notes because if I don't keep notes, tangents for days. But as much as I'm very confident, I can do this podcast, I can speak at conferences in front of thousands of people. That does not faze me. But if I'm on the receiving end of lots of words, such as in meetings or company events, I feel like I'm overwhelmed by other people's words and it takes me longer to process what they were saying. So if you use a Mac and you get like the spinny beach ball or PC where you get the wee egg timer thing, that's me. I end up in this, I call it my spinny beach ball moment because I'm like, it's like I run out of RAM. Like, I cannot process this data fast enough, right? Like, if I could upgrade my internal CPU, I totally would. Because it's like I have a single thread and everything's going in there and I get a backlog. So imagine a meeting with 10 people in it and one person's leading it and they're saying almost too much usually. There's always one person who dominates the meeting. And then there's other people talking. I want to listen and take it all in. I'm doing that. And listening and paying attention takes so much energy because I know if I don't listen, if I don't take notes, I'm going to forget it. That I get this spinny beach ball. I get this backlog. And eventually my brain just shuts down because I reach my limit. And then in the meeting, people go, anybody got any questions? Or they'll go, right, anybody else got anything to add? And I'm there like going, processing. And so despite often being the most senior person in the room who's got loads to contribute and loads of experience and things that I could help people with, unless the conversation is equitable, back and forth, I'm really good in a one-on-one. Really good in a one-on-one. Group dynamic, though, I'll often say nothing. It will take me maybe an hour after a meeting to collect all my thoughts, think about it, and then I'll put something in Slack or I'll put it in email. If you find you've got someone in your work who is the quietest person in the room, I wonder if this might also be a thing for them. There's like 20% of us that are neurodivergent, apparently, and many people are undiagnosed, as I was up until the last few months. And so if you find that resonates with you, please feel free to reach out to me if it would help to chat about it, but also please reach out to your line manager or someone at your work who can help you with it, because there is nothing worse than feeling like you've got loads to say, but feel like there's not room for you to speak. All right, number 15. I talked about gaming a little bit already, and as you can see if you're watching the video, I love video games. I seek dopamine in many places. Again, from what I'm learning, ADHD brains, we struggle with dopamine. And so I'm very easily addicted to games. But I usually prefer returning to known games where I know how to play them, where I know how to do them. I have sunk thousands of hours into Elder Scrolls Online, many, many hundreds of hours into the Elder Scrolls franchise that isn't the MMO. Same for Fallout, right? I'm such a Bethesda fangirl. As much as I say I struggle with employment, Bethesda, hire me, happily. But I can honestly get so easily addicted to games that I will spend hours in them and I will come back to them. I will forget to eat. And it's very much dopamine seeking behavior. I love the ding, ding, ding. I love the gathering. They're just doing random things. It makes my brain happy. I've spent over 100 hours just playing Balatro now, and it's become my go-to because it's like a safe space. Same as playing Fallout games or Elder Scrolls games. I know them. I know the mechanics. The barrier to entry is so low, and they're just such easy dopamine. But I can become easily addicted to them, and that can be a problem. It's the same as using social media on my phone. It's why I don't use TikTok anymore. I do have Instagram, but I go in waves of uninstalling it off my phone when I notice it's a problem. So I'm very, very acutely aware that I am easily addicted to cheap dopamine. And that kind of leads me on to number 16, which is my final big one, is reading. I used to love reading as a kid. These days, I really struggle to read books, and I've struggled since my 20s. My brain wanders. I end up rereading the same sentences over and over. I have looked at every word. I'll get to the bottom of the page and realize none of it's gone in. I'm much better with audiobooks or podcasts where I can be doing something else at the same time. But I do want to add that as much as I know a lot of that is ADHD, I think a lot of it has become worse because of things like TikTok, Reels, short form video. It is impacting our attention spans. And so I think there's many reasons why I've got increasingly bad at reading. One of them's definitely ADHD with the distraction, zoning out, daydreaming, looking at words that not going in. But the other one is definitely struggling to focus because of the way social media and the internet has evolved. And so these days I limit my exposure to that side of the internet because of the impact it has. And I think it exacerbates a lot of my ADHD issues. So they were all my symptoms. They were what led me to think, well, holy shit, I might not be neurotypical. But why the hell did it take me until I was 40 to question it and 41 to get a diagnosis? Well, growing up, I lived in a rural village, Lincolnshire, sort of southeast England. And ADHD back then, when I was at school, so I'm born in 85, so you're looking at like in the 90s, ADHD meant hyperactive boys. It meant the naughty boys running around the playground, not able to sit still in class. And yes, a lot of them probably did have ADHD, but it wasn't really seen as a thing that girls had. It was never questioned. And from a very early age, I was raised to be the quiet girl, the good girl, the A-star student. I was raised as a woman to be quiet, polite, to do things for other people, to be happy, right? To smile, to not raise my voice, to do as you're told. And I realized that I've unknowingly masked who I was, my natural impulses, my entire life. And it's only through hearing other people share their experiences that increasingly triggered this "that's me" kind of reaction. Is from meeting neurodivergent friends, especially over the last sort of 4 or 5 years, I'm realizing the similarities. It's from listening to podcasts such as Late Bloomers, to listening to Rox Pink and going, oh shit, so much of her is me. But then also now listening to her partner, Rich, who's got autism, going, well, that's also me. I think I'm a hybrid of the two. ADHD chatter podcast, all of these, I'm going to put links in the show notes, but it's listening to those. It's reading books. That's when I realized. And I do think this whole particular age for me, where there are definitely subtle shifts happening in my hormones. I definitely am on the very, very start of that perimenopause journey, where I think over the last few years, my ability to mask has dropped and it's become more and more exhausting trying to do things that just aren't me. And so that's why it led to me realizing all of this at 40. And so I had my list and I was like, well, I need to do something with this, because the way my brain works is that if I do not get it written on paper and someone else to validate this and say, yes, it's true, I'll get imposter syndrome, I'll question it, I'll doubt it, and then I wouldn't feel comfortable talking about it, right? And because it ties in so much with my burnout and many of the issues that I've struggled with, and it comes up for many of the people that I work with on the coaching side, so many of the games founders I work with struggle with burnout, and so many of them are neurodivergent. I thought, well, if I'm neurodivergent, I think I am, but I don't want to talk about it unless I know, because it would feel disingenuous to say, oh yeah, I'm ADHD. For me, at least, I would want to be able to say, no, I definitely know I am, so that any advice or insights I get come from something that's really backed in fact, in my own research, and knowing that, oh, this is how it's worked for me. This is how it might help you. And so that was what led me to wanting to get the diagnosis. So first I looked at the NHS. I think it was about a 3.5-year wait list the last time I checked. And I thought, you know what, I don't want to wait 3.5 years, because that's too long for me to be in limbo. So a lot of the podcasts I listen to, many of the people have unfortunately had to go private to get their diagnosis. And I did the same. I chose Care ADHD. And the reason I chose them is because other podcasts that I listened to, the hosts had gone with them and they'd explained the process, and it lowered that barrier to entry, right? It made it easier for me to go, well, I know what to expect. So the process is, at least with Care ADHD, and probably the same for many of the other providers, you pay your fee. I think it was about £400 at the point I did it. Again, memory terrible, forget basic. I don't even know what day of the week it is half the time. I paid the fee. They send you a link to an online portal. And in that online portal has loads of forms, like questionnaires for you to fill in. And they're each individual in different topics and different categories. Personally, I think if you can do all of those questionnaires in a timely manner and within the timing that it needs before the bloody website times out and you lose your progress, that's your diagnosis. If you can do that, you're probably not ADHD. But for the rest of us, it's quite difficult. So hot tips for if you're going through this process. Number 1, write down your symptoms, the things you think are your neurodivergent traits. Write down every example you can think of. Do it before, because if you're anything like me, you're going to struggle to think of it in the moment. Like my working memory also applies to facts about myself. People will often ask me, what's your favorite song at the moment? I literally couldn't tell you. I literally couldn't tell you because it's out of context. In that moment, I cannot answer the question because it's not front of mind. And so, yeah, write down all of your things so that if the website, you see it might time out, at least you've got your prepped answers. If you can't do it in that time, which many of us can't, I couldn't, screenshot as you go. So at least you know what you've written if it does time out, or write it in a document first and just paste your answers in. Now, there's a lot of forms you have to go through, so much. Much of it's about work. There's like an adult questionnaire where it's like a friend or a colleague. I don't know. They give you different insights that you might not have spotted. And it just gives a little bit of extra context for the person doing the assessment. One of the forms I want to talk about is one where you're supposed to sit down with someone who knew you at the age of 7, and they're meant to answer a bunch of questions about you, about how things impacted you, about your behavior, because apparently up to that age or around that age is where you're not masking as much, where you're being more you before society molds you into appearing neurotypical, which is where most of us start on this journey of burnout and struggling, right? Now, I had a problem with that one because I do not live anywhere near where I grew up. I have a strained relationship with my parents. It's really not easy to talk about, but that's unfortunately very, very common. So I did not feel comfortable asking them to answer it. I'm very close to my brother, but he's 2 years younger than me. At 5 years old, would he have been aware of the things that I was going through at 7? Probably not. Probably not. So I thought, I don't really have anybody of that age. I don't remember the names of my primary school teachers. I went to a secondary school that was an hour away from where I grew up. And then I went to uni, like in different places, and I've moved around a lot. And so while I do have some really good friends from, say, secondary school who I'll chat to, they didn't know me at 7. And so nobody could answer that form. And I was genuinely terrified that I've spent all this money and I can't fill in one of the forms, so therefore I'm not going to get my diagnosis right. Well, I said, look, I can't answer this. Here's why. And I wrote a big paragraph about why. And thankfully, it didn't impact the diagnosis. Basically, the person brought it up in the assessment and we talked about things from my perspective as best we could, but thankfully it didn't impact it. So you go through and do all of these forms. And one of the things that you will need is what's called a summary care record. At least that's what it's called in the UK. It's called the same in Scotland as well. And they do mention at the start of this process, you should get this first because it can take weeks. So they said it could take up to 4 weeks. And even the NHS, it could take up to like 28 days. It takes longer than that. It took me about 6 weeks to get mine. But it's, for me, was one of the biggest stumbling blocks because, at least in Scotland, I had to go to my GP. I had to request a paper form from reception. I had to sit and fill out this whole paper form about why I needed the records, hand it in, and then it just goes into this black box and you're like, okay, maybe I'll get this at some point. And it got to 28 days and I had to phone and be like, have they got it yet? And they're like, no, we'll let you know. So you're in, again, this holding pattern. It feels very out of your control, which for me, it was quite uncomfortable. I was like, if I can control something, if I can fix it, if I can do something proactive, then great. But I felt like this part of the process, I was in limbo, basically. It took a long time for the forms to come through. And basically what I got was a A4 envelope. It's basically a printout of your records where they will, in my case, they've like Sharpied out in black pen the names of the doctors or the specialists, but it's got everything else. It's got the dates of all your appointments, any medication, all my history with like anxiety, depression, all of that. And who knew that was probably actually me masking an ADHD. But yeah, it basically has all of that. And then what you have to do is photograph it or scan it and upload it. And so that part of the process was very, very long. My recommendation for anybody, aside from all the obvious stuff already mentioned, like making the list of your symptoms first, is get that first. Get that first. Go to the doctors, get it done, because it will probably take longer than you think it will. So you eventually get all your forms done. Probably, if you're like me, will take you longer than you think it will. And then you submit it and you get a phone call. Sorry, you get an email first that says you'll get a phone call at some point to book your appointment. And after about a week, I got my phone call, and it was a few days later, my appointment. And the assessment was honestly the easiest part of it. It was lovely. The lady from Care ADHD who did my assessment, she was so sweet. She was so kind, instant rapport. She was just such a sweetheart. She was so, so nice. She made me feel instantly comfortable. We talked about my assessment forms, and she started asking me various questions. And it was really funny because she clearly had a list of questions, and we ended up having a huge giggle because I don't know how many questions she had, but she had a list, and she'd only got about a quarter of a way through them after about 45 minutes because I went on so many tangents and I just waffled, and I was telling all these stories. I was going on side quests, and bless her, she laughed so much, and I was laughing as well because I'm like, well, it says so much, right, about me. But eventually, she pulled me back in and we managed to answer the questions. And basically at the end of the hour, she told me that I have combined type ADHD. And I've done a bit of reading on this, but I didn't know too much about it. But I'm both hyperactive in terms of, well, you can see my movements if you're watching the video, because I'm not masking in this video. I'm being 100% me. I'm letting myself look around and move a lot, which probably might be a lot for some people. Feel free to turn off the video if you're watching video. But my brain is hyperactive. It's just constantly thinking of things and getting distracted. I daydream a lot. But I'm also like inattentive, right? So it's like this is nonstop. Like I struggle to focus, I struggle to engage, but I just struggle to shut off all at the same time. So that was the assessment process. Now I officially have ADHD. And when I talked about this publicly on the podcast already and social media, I started getting questions in from people. I'm always open to listener questions. I always put the link in the show notes where you can send me questions. Please do send them, because if I can be honest and open about something and help someone else going through similar struggles that I've been through, whether it's ADHD, neurodivergence, questioning if you might be autistic, all of these things, or burnout, imposter syndrome, I want to help people be able to like have successful, happy lives, whether that's success in work, success in your personal life. And if me talking openly about these things helps you, then that's great. So please do send me your questions. Anyway, again, I am digressing. Who knew that was ADHD to go on tangents? So one of the listener questions I got was, how does knowing that I have ADHD, how does that reshape the way I live and work? And I think it's important to talk about this post-diagnosis phase. I've had my diagnosis now for a few months, and honestly, it was quite hard at first. I thought, I'm going to be relieved. I'm going to be excited. I'm going to be happy because at least I understand myself, right? No, I'm in that place now. But for the first few months, it was brutal. I went into this deep retrospective analysis sort of looping about my whole life. I realized where ADHD had impacted me unknowingly my whole life. Started with the burnout, right? And going, oh shit, if I'd known I was ADHD, would I have burnt out so hard? Could I have tried going on meds in my 20s? What would there have been things that I could have done to help me in my career, in my personal life, in my relationships? I found that I did this deep analysis, and then because of that, I started to get angry because, I've been diagnosed with anxiety so many times, right? I've had panic attacks and loads of stress, and I've been like a hair trigger away from like meltdowns my whole life. And yes, a lot of that came from trauma. Yes, a lot of that has been worked on through a lot of therapy, a lot of personal growth, a lot of introspection, a lot of work through cutting out alcohol. But I do fundamentally believe that if I'd known I had ADHD earlier, it would have helped with so, so much of that. And then once you go out past the anger, which I think is a very human reaction to a big bit of news like this, and once you get past the retrospective and the analysis of the past, you then start to understand, right, now I know how my brain works. How can I help myself to live more naturally in a way that works for me. And that's what I'm currently trying to do. So there's been a few big areas that I'm working on. Number one, reading. As I mentioned, I love fantasy. I love dystopia. I love being in different worlds. It's one of the reasons I fucking love video games. But I used to like reading. I loved it as a kid. I read loads of like Roald Dahl and kids' books. And then for a point, I could read like Edgar Allan Poe, and admittedly, a lot of them are short stories, and now I see why. The books that I've managed to read are often like young adult. They're easy to read. They are fun. They move quickly. They don't have obtuse ways of writing. They don't use big words or jargon for no good reason, right? It's just a barrier to entry for me. And so if I look back at my favorite books in recent years that I have managed to read, Piranesi, absolutely love Piranesi. I can still picture that world. It just snapped me into like this hyper focus. Absolutely adore it. I wish they'd make a film about it. Someone please make a video game. I want to run around in that world. I would absolutely love that. But I think because it was quite quick paced and it was intriguing, it kept my brain engaged. The Midnight Library, Matt Haig, I enjoyed that one because it basically is lots of short alternate universes about a character, and each one's a chapter. So they're almost like tiny stories within. And I didn't realize that was why I could read it, right? I've been watching the Silo series on Apple TV. I only watched the first season, first two seasons. Do not spoiler if you're watching the new one, because I've not watched it yet. Maybe I'll watch it before this episode comes out. But I started reading the books because I love the world. I love that universe. I love a dystopian future set in the real world. But I was like, oh no, these books look big. I would love to read it. I want to know more about these characters. Turns out Hugh Howey writes exactly how I need things to be written. They're short chapters. They are to the point. There's no side lore. And as much as I do like lore, if I'm getting facts or information that I don't feel is relevant, or I don't know why I'm listening to it or reading it, I just struggle and I zone out because I'm like, what is the point? It's really bizarre. It's like, what is the point? Why are you telling me this? Whereas Hugh Howey, he moves so quickly in his stories that it's just like bam, 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 bam. And I can keep up with it. And the chapters are so short, I'll blitz through them. So I've now read 2 books from the trilogy. I've read Wool and I've read Shift, and I now need to read the 3rd book. I absolutely love it. And so it's funny because I was berating myself for not being able to read Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings. No wonder. They're fucking huge. I look at those books, so I'm fucking terrified. There's no way. No way. And I'm not even setting myself that challenge now. I find the books that work for me and I'm going to read them. There is no shame in short chapters, in short stories, in reading young adult fiction. If that works for your brain and you enjoy reading, read those books. Absolutely no shame in it. I'm going to own it. So I've managed to rework reading for me. That's been great. A hyperactivity. Look, I know my brain is hyperactive. So now, I mean, I'll lean forward on my desk here, but for anybody watching the video, I'm holding up a notebook. But I have these wee notebooks. I get these from Waterstones. I love them. They're tiny. Wee IKEA pencil is great. Just fits perfect in there. I keep that in my handbag at all times. I've always kept notes. But these days it's like I'm really, really aware of I need to write things down. If I don't, my brain, I'm going to forget it, right? So it's a bit of working memory support, but also just because I know I'm going to come up with random things at unexpected moments, I always have a way of writing things down. Now, I know that hyperactivity can also be really exhausting for me because mentally I don't switch off. So I try and program in rest. And I know that I will hyper focus on a game, on a TV show, and occasionally a book if it's, again, like the Hugh Howey ones where I can really lock in. So I now allow myself that time. I used to think of it as wasting time before, but now it's the only way that I can really shut off my brain. And so I let myself do those things. And in terms of hyperactivity, in terms of my movement, like if you're watching the video, you'll have seen I'm not sitting still. I'm flailing my arms around quite a lot. But again, I'm doing it so that I can show you unmasked me. I'm not staring at the camera because I find it exhausting. I'm looking around the room. I want to normalize that we don't have to just stare at the damn camera, all right? But you'll see, and if you're not watching, I'm sorry, if you're on audio, you could see the video on YouTube. But I'm physically hyperactive. I struggle to stay still. I'm sitting still on a chair at the moment, but my upper half is flailing. I've been crossing my legs on my chair, sitting legs crossed, flinging my legs about, which you can't see below the camera line, right? And that's what I have to do in meetings. I don't know if people on video notice me pick this up. I have a load of stones. I used to want to be a geologist when I was a kid, and I've got loads of like gemstones and minerals and things like that. I absolutely love them. And this is just one I found on the beach. It's a bit of quartz, I think. And it's got all these little holes. But what it means is that I can fiddle with it and I can play with it. And it's enough to give me that little bit of movement when I feel like I need to sit still or if I need to be still. So now I quite often will take a little stone in my pocket when I'm going on a walk, if I'm going to a pub, if I'm going to a networking event or conference. Heck, this one lives on my desk and I use it in meetings, and I without realizing it, picked it up during recording this podcast. It helps me move. It helps me do things, and I'm not toning that down anymore. If I need to fidget, if I need to move, I am letting myself. Quite often, my desk will be in standing mode, and that means I can pace around and I can like prance about, and I'll often stand on one leg, like do a little jig. I can't do that when I'm recording because I will just be walking off camera constantly. I have to sit down. But I'm letting myself, at least in the upper half, be very fidgety. So yeah, I just let myself do things. I will fidget with my hair a lot. I never noticed that was an ADHD trait. But it's just this stimming, right? And I never again knew what that word meant before, but it's ways to regulate myself because I need to be moving. I need to be doing things. I will pick at my nails. I often won't have my nails painted because I pick at them and I just end up with chip nails. I fidget with my hair. I fidget with my keys. I'll pick up a rock. Constant fidgeting, but I let myself do it. Another way I'm learning to live with this whole ADHD thing is understanding people pleasing a bit more, doing lots of research into rejection sensitivity dysphoria, or RSD, if you see the acronym. I didn't realize the two were so closely intertwined. I've people pleased my whole life. I've been working on it the last few years to be more myself. It's something I work with my therapist a lot on. And only recently did a friend turn around and say to me, and it was so interesting, is that she learned that people pleasing is a form of manipulation. That friend knows who she is if she's listening. Hello. But it's a form of manipulation. And I hate that. I hate that because I want to be honest. I want to be authentic. I want to be 100% me, right? But people pleasing is pretending to be something you're not in a way that makes other people like you. That is manipulation. It sucks. And so as much as I didn't want to do it for my own mental health, now I'm like, oh, that's just a horrible thing to do in general. So now I try and be as authentic as I can be. And it takes time, right? I say I'm a recovering people pleaser because it takes time. I'm having to unlearn 41 years of societal programming to be me, to be who I am. And learning about rejection sensitivity has been really interesting because I actually think knowing it exists makes it better. And knowing that I have ADHD and that I can put a label to all of these things means that when I get triggered by something, if something happens that makes me go, oh God, I can put a name to it and I can be like, oh, it's rejection sensitivity. It doesn't make it easier necessarily in the moment, but over time, I'm finding as I get better at clocking it, it helps me diffuse it a little bit. So it will still hurt. It will still cut deep, but I can almost rationalize it, go, I understand why that's hurting so much because my brain is wired that way. My brain is wired for things to cut deep. And I find that the more I'm around people who are my people, where I'm not people pleasing, where I'm not having to mask, that I'm not getting as triggered. I'm not getting that rejection as much. And so finding your tribe, finding your people is a great way of limiting how much you have to people please and limiting the amount of rejection sensitivity you will feel. Although huge work in progress, it's going to be a long journey, that one, I think. A big post-diagnosis thing is masking. So yeah, if you're watching this, you'll see I'm flailing. I'm not looking at the camera as much. I'm being totally me on it. When I got my diagnosis, I do not know what happened, but basically my mask didn't just drop, it fell off. It landed on the floor with a thud. Now, I'd been struggling with the exhaustion of masking without realizing that's what it was for at least the last few years, right? It was weighing heavy, and I think it is what has contributed to my burnout over the years. But as soon as I got my diagnosis, that mask fell off, landed on the floor, and now it's too heavy to pick up. My body refuses. And so if I try to sit still now and record a podcast episode and stare at the camera, like if I sit like I am now and I do minimal gestures, I've not got my wee stone, and I just stare, I can't even keep my hands still, it's ridiculous. I have to hold my hands behind my chair. I struggle, right? Because it's just so uncomfortable. I need to be able to move. I'm finding that pretending I like bands, I just can't. I need to fidget. I need to be me. I don't want to pretend that I want to read Lord of the Rings, because I really do not. I want to read my young adult books. I want to read my short chapters. I want to read my easy reading adult books if I have to. It's just one of those things where the mask, when it goes, you see it for what it is. And I don't want to live pretending to be neurotypical. I don't want to live pretending to be somebody else. You only get one chance at life, right? I stared my mortality in the face a few years ago when I had my cancer diagnosis. And 2 years ago, I got the all clear. And for me, that was a big, big factor, I think, again, in just realizing something wasn't quite right with how my brain is, like it's not neurotypical. But even when it comes to masking, right? We don't know how long we've got. And I don't want to make it utterly morbid, despite the goth that I am. But we don't know how long we've got. So why do you want to live your life wearing a mask, pretending to be someone you are not? I want to live my life 100% me. I want to like the things I like. If I don't like something, so be it. So be it. It's okay to like some things and not like other things. It's okay to have a different opinion to other people. If someone else loves a book and they're passionate about it, bloody brilliant. I love that for them. But it doesn't mean that I have to pretend that I am the same. I'm learning a lot about dopamine. I already talked about like games and social media. I know that I am easily addicted to cheap dopamine. I'm also very easily addicted to the cheap dopamine that comes with carbs. I don't have much of a sweet tooth. Occasionally I like ice cream, but carbs in terms of like a good pastry or a pizza, god damn, I love them. But it's such easy dopamine. And I'll allow myself those things when I need the boost. If I've had a hard day, I'm going to eat pizza and ice cream, right? But I'm very aware now that my brain seeks novelty and dopamine. With social media, I make sure I limit my use of it. And it's simple things like I make my phone black and white a lot of the time. And I only enable color mode when I'm taking photos or editing photos or sharing something like that, because I know that it makes it less engaging. And so I'm less likely to get hooked on it. I put the screen time limits on, although they're so easy to just go ignore on, at least on an iPhone. But just little ways of interrupting that pattern really, really helps. I've thought a lot about alcohol. That is a huge topic for me. Now, it was actually before my ADHD diagnosis that I cut out alcohol. It's at the time of recording this, it's 5.5 months that I've been sober. I've been questioning my relationship with alcohol for a long time. I never used to drink at home on my own. It just wasn't a thing. I just wasn't interested in it. But I would drink when I would go out with friends. And then when I would go out socially, it was always when it was a social thing, I would drink. And I would feel like I needed to drink. And I realized now, after the diagnosis, that it was helping me unmask. Because alcohol kind of mutes a lot of your senses, I wouldn't notice the sticky table. I wouldn't notice the monologue. I would unmask. I would fidget. I would be more, quote unquote, me a lot of the times after a couple of drinks. The problem was that because with alcohol and unmasking and all of that, I would get more dopamine. It was like I could not stop on nights out. So I would rarely go for a night out and have like, I'm just going to have two, and then I could stop it myself. I can't. I know it's like a problem where I enjoy it so much that I can't stop it. And then because it became a crutch for socializing, because I'd be so fucking awkward in a group situation, especially when it's with new people. You put me in a new social dynamic where it's a whole room of new people. I know one or two people. I would drink so much, and then I would do things I regret. I would become overwhelmed. My emotions would just skyrocket. And, you know, they're all things that I know can be part and parcel now of having ADHD a lot of the time, but I can limit the impact of those if I don't drink. And so I'd already tried not drinking for a few months at the start of the year. And now, knowing I have this diagnosis, I'm not going to bring back drinking. I have no desire to consume any alcohol. I've just done a full festival in Copenhagen without drinking. And that for me was my big challenge, right? I was like, am I going to be able to do it? Am I going to have as much fun? And I actually had more fun. You know why? Because I wasn't hungover and I didn't do anything stupid. I don't have any regrets from that trip. I had a bloody lovely time, so many happy memories. And I know full well if I drank, I'd have done something stupid. I'd have got myself injured. I'd have just said something that I regret. So yeah, alcohol has been a huge one for me. Absolutely huge. I've cut it out. I'm now sober. And again, I usually say never, but I honestly cannot imagine a situation where I would drink alcohol again. I just don't want to. Since the diagnosis, I've been reassessing introvert. I've always had that label, right? Introvert. I'm not a fucking introvert. I thought I was. I was just masking. I'm confident. I can speak at conferences. I can host a podcast. I can network. I love a big event. I will go and say hello to random strangers. I will chat to a random. I am not an introvert. What I have been is heavily masked. I've muted myself into silent. I've overthought the correct thing to say. I've people pleased myself into silence. And the RSD means I've not wanted to say something for the fear of being judged, because I've wanted to appease others, to be accepted. But because the mask has fallen off now, that ain't happening. And so I'm really starting to question, am I an introvert? Yes, I do love my own personal space. I recharge when I'm on my own, which often is introversion, but I think it's because I'm unmasked. I'm dancing in my kitchen to whatever music I want to do. But I do that with my closest friends. I do that with the people that I adore, where I can sing in my car, where I can listen to the music that I like, where I can be 100% me. And those people give me energy. And so I don't think I'm actually introverted. I genuinely believe I've been masking, and now I can be 100% me. I'm finding I'm gaining energy around people, around the right people. Another thing I've reassessed is exercise. Now, I love working out. I like to be strong. I like to protect my body, especially as I mentioned, going on this perimenopause journey. Like bone density, strength, so important to women in particular in their 40s, right? Huge. I want, like, use it or you'll lose it sort of thing. So I've been doing bench squat deadlift, like heavy lifting now for, gosh, at least 4 years, I think it is. But I get really, really bored doing that unless I've got a personal trainer to blether to, because it's just the same. I know numbers go up, but eventually numbers going up doesn't give you the same satisfaction. And so I would stop and I would do gym classes, or I would do other things. I'm like, why can't I sustain doing bench squat deadlift? Why can't I do a certain gym program? It's because I get bored. There's no novelty, right? The amount of dopamine I get because I'm already competent at it, it just isn't there for me anymore. And so now what I do is I have like this full gym membership for across like Edinburgh for all the gyms, where some days I'll just be like, do you know what, today I fancy bench. I'm going to go do bench. Today I just fancy accessories. I'm going to go and do some lats or do some other things. There'll be days where I'm like, all I want to do today is go bouldering, and I will do bouldering, or I'll do a dance class, or I'll do Pilates. trying to do the same thing, I was fighting a losing battle because I would procrastinate and not do it because it was boring. Whereas if I can at least go, what do I fancy doing today? And I can chop and change it, it keeps it novel, it keeps it interesting. And I swear, bouldering might just be the best sport for ADHD people, because not only is it bloody difficult, and I feel like there's this long journey ahead of me learning to get better, but they're constantly changing the routes at the gym I go to. So the one I go to, it's every 7 weeks they change a bit of the wall. And because they do that on a different schedule, it's like most weeks I can go and something will have changed. There's always something new to do. There's always a new challenge. Honestly, the novelty seeking part of my brain that loves to learn, that loves to challenge, bouldering, it's definitely a little cheat sheet there. Definitely try it if you like to be fit, and if you've not tried it and if you're ADHD. Friendships and relationships has been an interesting thing post-diagnosis. I've realized where I've struggled in the past, and I've realized where certain social situations don't work for me anymore. So, for example, when I used to drink, again, that's impacted many things. I have found that I used to be able to go and sit in a pub and I would have a few pints, probably too many pints, but I could sit in a group dynamic and I would be fine because I wouldn't get so overstimulated. Whereas now, there is nothing I hate more than going to a pub and sitting around a table with loud people that monopolize a conversation, because I'm going to get that traffic jam in my brain. I'm going to run out of RAM. I'm going to end up in my spinny beach ball mode. The table's going to be sticky. It's going to be loud. I'm going to struggle to hear people. I just don't enjoy it anymore. However, what I do love is I will still go to those same pubs, but when they've got a karaoke night or a DJ or a band's playing. Why? Because I can dance, I can move. I'm not sitting around, and it's about enjoying a thing rather than having to sit and listen. Now, I can sit and chat to my friends one-on-one. It's very different if I go to a pub with a mate and we're just sat there and I'm not drinking and we have a conversation. But I found that, unfortunately, a lot of people in my world are the ones that speak quite loudly, and they speak a lot. And I've really struggled with that. And it's one of the things I want to be honest and open about, because it's probably been, I mean, there's a lot of things that are hard about learning about how your brain works, but that one for me is absolutely huge. I need conversations to be more 50-50. I need things to be one-on-one. Big group dynamics don't work for me unless it's a gig, a festival, something where we're all doing the same thing. Group trip to the cinema, great, because we're all looking at the same thing and we're all talking about the same thing. But sitting around a table or a networking event, listening to one person talk for ages about something that might not have any bearing on my world, I can't these days. I really struggle. Since that mask has dropped, I found it absolutely brutal. On the plus side, it's meant that I am really finding my people, and I'm finding what gives me spoons, and I'm really noticing those people that light me up. And I'm trying to be a good friend to all my friends, even the ones that I struggle with sometimes in a social dynamic, because they're good people, they're lovely people, I care about them. Just means I have to limit the ways in which I interact. It's really tricky. It's really, really tricky. Not an easy thing to go through, but worth it. And so another question that I've got recently is whether or not I'm on any medication. And that is an option through Care ADHD. That's why they ask for your doctor's records, right? So they can put you on triage if you want to. For now, I am not on any meds. The reason for that is I've spent 41 years of my life masking, and now the mask has fallen off. I don't know where the fuck it's gone. Even if I could find it, it's too heavy. I ain't putting it back on again. But I have spent so long masking, people pleasing, trying to be acceptable, struggling with RSD, being emotionally overwhelmed because of all of that, burning out. I want to learn fundamentally who I am when I'm me, when I'm authentic, when it is just me. So I'm not taking any meds at the moment. I am trying to build my life and my career in a way that works with my brain, because I think there's a lot of amazing things that come about from being neurodivergent. I have so many great ideas, and yes, putting them into action can be quite hard, but I have so many great ideas for the podcast. And when I do hyper focus on something, I am locked in. If I'm passionate about something, I am locked in. Playing video games, I love them, right? I can lock in and play most Bethesda games aside from Starfield. Sorry, Bethesda, but no Starfield here. But like, I can really lock in on those things. It's about finding things that resonate with me. And I don't want to put myself in situations where I'm constantly overstimulated, where I'm stressed, where I'm burning out. So I'm trying to build my business in a way that works with that. I make sure I schedule in gym so that, or at least getting outside for a walk. I'm working hourly with people. I know that I really struggle with full-time employment. So now I do freelance. I do ad hoc consultancy. I do coaching, which is hourly. And I love all of those bits of work, and they work with my brain. And so no, I'm not on any meds at the moment. Now, would I take meds? Yes. If I found that maybe in 6 months, if I'm really struggling with actually getting work done, or if I find that I'm burning out again, or if one of my dream jobs come up. Now, I've said I struggle with employment, and that is because the novelty or the excitement wears off for me. There are very few companies where I go, I would love to work for them and I could do full-time employment. One of those is Bethesda, obviously such a huge fangirl. I talk about them all the time. Like, Bethesda, hire me, please. But if say, for example, let's talk silly hypothetical, that they came to me and offered me a job, like a leadership role there, I would want to do that job in a heartbeat. Would I take meds to help me focus, to help me do that? Yes, I would. Because if I found that I would struggle doing that job, even if it's the thing I would love to do, then I would do it. However, I would like to first try it without the meds, because if I can do it without the meds, then I think that would be better. Third listener question that I've been getting is how I feel like having ADHD has impacted my career, both negatively and positively. And I can only speak like retrospectively about that, right? I can't talk about how it will impact in the future. But I think it's interesting because, yes, there's negatives, right? There's the burnout, there's the people pleasing, there's the feeling trapped in roles and repeated tasks, in struggling to do a 9 to 5 unless I adore it, unless it's a passion project. It's been really, really hard. I've struggled to work with people who just don't vibe with me. I've struggled to speak up because of the people pleasing, because of the RSD. There's been lots of negative. However, there is a huge amount of positive. And I don't believe I would actually be where I am today, being able to be CTO, CPO, founder of a business, working with these amazing companies, if I hadn't had ADHD. Why? Because I love learning. I'm constantly seeking new information. I'm constantly researching. Whether or not it's an ADHD thing or not, I'm not sure, but the deep dive and the hyper focus. If I want to learn a new skill, I'll go and learn that new skill. I used to work in a bank straight out of uni with my computer science degree. I taught myself Flash and ActionScript in my lunch times that got me my first job at Mindcandy as a game developer. And then when Flash started to die, I taught myself C# and Unity in a weekend so I could go and learn Unity. That led to me running the London Unity user group, which I fucking loved. I absolutely loved running that meetup. And then I ended up working for Unity, right? All of these things where I pivot quickly. I spot patterns. I spot things that are gonna happen. So I can see when technologies are struggling, if things are pivoting and changing, and I move quickly. And I think that's really, really helped my career, because I don't look at myself and go, Guy, if I'd always said I was a Flash developer, I do still miss ActionScript, to be fair. I wish Flash would come back. But moving quickly and pivoting and not being afraid to reinvent myself and loving change and loving novelty, it's kept me ahead of the curve. And that's how I've got where I am. As much as I know people pleasing and RSD are negative, they're people pleasing is a bad thing to do. I fundamentally believe that. An RSD is a horrible thing to live with. It's brutal, but it meant that in my early career, I did not rock the boat. I was seen as a good employee. I did what needed to be done. And I know sometimes behind the scenes, I was like, I don't want to do that. I don't agree with it, but I would just do it, right? Because I wanted to be accepted. I wanted to do well. I wanted to please my manager, the company. And again, that led to promotions. And yeah, I did well. I did well doing that. So I think that really helped on my career. So yeah, positives and negatives of ADHD. I think, honestly, I'm actually glad I've got it. I don't believe it's a superpower because there are huge challenges that come with it. But I think knowing I've got it, I can look at like my past career and see where it's helped me, and I can use it more. The positive traits of ADHD now, I can lock in on those, and it helps me understand why I love creativity, why I'm good at making something, ship it, get it out next. New projects, new shiny. It makes me really good at freelancing. It makes me really good at being a consultant, at being a coach, because it's different problems, different challenges constantly. And I absolutely love that. So let's wrap up with some resources that have helped me, because hopefully they will help you too. Late Bloomers podcast. I've mentioned it already. I absolutely adore it. I listen to every episode. I've gone back and listened to so much of their back catalogue, because I definitely think I'm some kind of Venn diagram between Rox and Rich with their ADHD. And I definitely think the autism. But I especially want to give a shout out to Rox Pink, because not only is she cool as hell, love her hair, she's very old, but she's so honest and open about her journey with everything from menopause to RSD to all of it. She's frankly a hero to me, because I would not be where I am now without her being so honest on her podcast, because I understand myself better. And as soon as you start to understand yourself, as soon as you hear other people talking about things, it can help you get answers, and that can only be a good thing. I'll put a link to the show notes for them. Like, please go listen to Late Bloomers. I think they're bloody brilliant. Another podcast, ADHD Chatter. Now, this one's a different vibe. The Late Bloomers one is the couple, and they talk about things, and they talk very honestly and candidly about their own experiences. ADHD Chatty, while there are some solo episodes with the host, he also interviews experts on neurodivergence. There is a lot about ADHD, but there's also ADHD, there's also autism, and it can be researchers, psychiatrists, authors, people from all different walks of life, and he gets them on and they talk about their experiences. And it's really interesting for understanding so much of the science in the background. It's really, really cool. So definitely give that one a listen. Again, wherever you fit on the neurodivergent spectrum, there'll probably be episodes there for you. And then a final little tip, and I'm not an affiliate or sponsored by any of these. I currently make no money from the podcast. I just do it to try and help other people. But Brain FM, so it's brain.fm. If you put that in your browser, or if you look for the app, it's basically like procedural audio is the best way I can describe it. Now, I got an account on this way back when they did whatever version of a Kickstarter they did. And I used to find it helped me focus on work, and I never knew why. Now I know. But now I will listen to it when I need to focus on something where I need to lock in. So one of my side projects is I'm writing books. So when I want to write and really lock in, I will put Brain FM on, because it has an ADHD mode and it has a deep focus mode. And it just helps me really get in my zone. I'll put it on when I need to do my accounting. If I find that music is making me too hyped up and I'm not focusing enough because I'm just singing along or I'm dancing, Brain FM almost just pulls me into a hyper focus. Honestly, if I didn't have the sort of grandfathered account where I'd paid like 25 quid over a decade ago for it to have lifetime access, I would still pay the monthly fee, because it is that helpful. And so that's my ADHD summary. There's a lot of information there. That's like a huge whirlwind run through of the whole process. My next steps for me, I'm building a life that works for me and my brain. I'd already started that before the diagnosis in ways of trying to avoid burnout, doing things that I enjoy, finding my purpose, doing things I'm passionate about. But now I can really embrace that, right? The mask has fallen away. I'm actively working on stopping being a people pleaser. I'm learning to say no. I am learning to speak up. I'm letting myself fidget. I'm letting myself flail my arms around. I'm letting myself not stare at the camera if I can't because I find it too exhausting. Again, I'm not medicating right now. I will keep you posted on if I do that. And yeah, probably the next step will be somewhere I'll get an autism diagnosis. The waiting list is still quite long on the NHS. I might put myself on that waiting list because for me, at least knowing I have ADHD is a big help. But if any of you listening or watching have gone private in the UK or in Scotland and can recommend someone, please do let me know, because at the moment I can't afford to get that private diagnosis. It already costs enough doing ADHD. But if I find that the waiting list is too long and I would like that answer, I'd very much appreciate any recommendations. And so, yeah, building a life that works for me. It is honestly such a journey. I'm only at the start of it. I'm very glad to have the diagnosis. I understand myself so much better. And now I can use this knowledge to help others. And that's the goal of my coaching, advisory, consultancy business. It's the goal of this podcast, right? I want to build for me sustainable success, not repeated burnout. I want to avoid the imposter syndrome. I want to be authentic. I want to be able to be my neurodivergent weird self. And I want to help other people, other ambitious people live happy, healthy, successful lives without burning themselves out, where they can embrace who they are. If you have found this episode or any of this is helpful, please can you do me a huge favor and give me a little thumbs up. If you can drop me a comment to let me know, that would be amazing. Again, RSD, recovering people pleaser, but it does really help me know that this episode has been helpful. If you could share it with a friend, honestly, I would be so thankful. If you have questions, topics, you want to just blather about ADHD or burnout, anything like that, please feel free to ping me over an email or a message. You can get in touch at gothboss.co.uk/podcast. I do read all of those messages. I try to reply, or what I'll at least do is bulk respond to like common themes or common topics in future episodes. I'm going to put all the links to all of that in the show notes to contact me, to all of those podcasts I've mentioned. And just a final quick reminder, as always, I am not a licensed therapist. I'm not a psychiatrist, psychologist, doctor, accountant, lawyer, any of that. I'm simply a recovering people pleaser, recently diagnosed with ADHD, who's had way too many burnouts. I've hit the top of my career ladder and realized that actually that way of working just doesn't work for my brain. And I'm now trying to find a way of building sustainable success for myself, because I love games. I love startups. I love technology. I love creative gear. I need to do it in a way that works for my brain. I need to find a way to live sustainably. And so that's why I do this podcast. If any of that resonates with you, please do join me on this journey. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.